In 2009, BlackBerry controlled nearly 50% of the global smartphone market. Barack Obama famously called his BlackBerry his lifeline. Wall Street executives, world leaders, and millions of professionals couldn't imagine life without their CrackBerry. Just 4 years later, BlackBerry's market share had collapsed to less than 1%. The company that invented mobile email, created the first true smartphone, and defined an entire generation of business communication had become a cautionary tale of corporate failure. This is the story of Research in Motion, later renamed BlackBerry, and how two Canadian engineers built a communications empire, revolutionized how the world worked, then watched it all slip away because they couldn't adapt to a changing world. It's a story about innovation and stubbornness, about understanding your customers so well that you forget the world is changing, and about how even the most successful companies can fail when they stop listening to what people actually want. The BlackBerry story begins in 1984 in Waterloo, Ontario, when two University of Waterloo engineering students, Mike Lazaridis and Douglas Freegan, founded Research in Motion with just $15,000 in startup capital. Lazaridis was obsessed with wireless communication. As a child, he'd built ham radios and dreamed of a world where people could communicate instantly across vast distances. At university, he studied electrical engineering and became fascinated with the potential of wireless data transmission. RIM's first products weren't phones at all. The company specialized in wireless technology, creating LED signs for sports arenas and wireless point-of-sale terminals for retailers. They were profitable but small, serving niche markets that larger companies ignored. By the early 1990s, mobile communication was evolving rapidly. Pagers were ubiquitous among business professionals, but they could only receive short text messages. Mobile phones existed but were expensive, bulky, and primarily used for voice calls. In 1992, Mike Lazaridis met Jim Balsillie, a Harvard MBA with experience in finance and business development. Balsillie invested $125,000 in RIM and became co-CEO, bringing business acumen to complement Lazaridis's technical vision. The breakthrough came when Lazaridis realized that wireless networks could transmit more than just voice and simple text messages. Email, already becoming essential in business, could be pushed to mobile devices instantly, without users having to manually check their inboxes. In 1999, after years of development, RIM launched the BlackBerry 850. It wasn't technically a phone, it was a two-way pager that could send and receive emails wirelessly, but it represented something revolutionary: instant access to email from anywhere. The original BlackBerry was an immediate success among business professionals who needed constant access to email. The device featured a full QWERTY keyboard, a black and white screen, and could deliver emails in real time using RIM's proprietary network infrastructure. What made BlackBerry special wasn't just the device, it was the entire ecosystem RIM had built. All BlackBerry emails were routed through RIM's secure servers in Waterloo, where they were encrypted and compressed before being sent to devices. This provided unprecedented security and reliability. RIM focused relentlessly on enterprise customers. The company developed BlackBerry Enterprise Server software that allowed corporations to integrate BlackBerry devices with their existing email systems. IT departments loved BlackBerry because it gave them complete control over employee communications. By 2003, BlackBerry had become synonymous with business success. Wall Street traders used BlackBerry devices to monitor markets and execute trades. Government officials relied on them for secure communications. The term CrackBerry emerged to describe users' addiction to constantly checking their devices. The numbers were staggering. RIM's subscriber base grew from 25,000 in 2000 to over 1 million by 2004. The company's stock price soared, making Lazaridis and Balsillie billionaires and turning RIM into one of Canada's most valuable technology companies. As demand grew, RIM expanded BlackBerry's capabilities. The BlackBerry 7230, launched in 2003, included a color screen and phone functionality. The BlackBerry 7100 series introduced a compact design with an innovative SureType keyboard that predicted words as users typed. While BlackBerry was designed for business users, it began attracting consumers who wanted instant access to email. The device's secure messaging system, BlackBerry Messenger (BBM), became popular among teenagers and young adults who used it like a private social network. By 2005, BlackBerry dominated the emerging smartphone market, but competition was intensifying. Palm had created popular handheld devices with phone capabilities. Microsoft was pushing Windows Mobile. Even traditional phone manufacturers like Nokia and Motorola were adding email capabilities to their devices. RIM responded by launching the BlackBerry Pearl in 2006, the company's first device designed specifically for consumers rather than business users. The Pearl featured a camera, media player, and sleek design intended to compete with consumer electronics rather than just business tools. However, RIM's growth was threatened by patent litigation. In 2006, the company faced a potential shutdown of its U.S. operations due to a patent dispute with NTP, a company that claimed to own fundamental patents for wireless email technology. RIM ultimately paid $612.5 million to settle the case. Meanwhile, Apple was secretly developing a device that would change everything. Steve Jobs and his team were working on the iPhone, a device that would challenge every assumption about what smartphones should be and how people wanted to use them. On January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs took the stage at the Macworld Conference and Expo and announced the iPhone. The device featured a large touchscreen, no physical keyboard, internet browsing, and a user interface unlike anything the mobile industry had seen before. The initial reaction from industry experts was mixed. Many questioned whether consumers would accept a phone without a physical keyboard. BlackBerry users were particularly skeptical. How could you type emails efficiently on a touchscreen? RIM executives were dismissive of the iPhone. Jim Balsillie famously said it would have no appeal to business customers because it lacked security features and a proper keyboard. Mike Lazaridis questioned whether the iPhone's battery could last a full day with such a large screen. But when the iPhone launched on June 29, 2007, consumer response was overwhelming. People lined up for hours to buy the device. Technology reviewers praised its intuitive interface and multimedia capabilities. It was clear that Apple had created something fundamentally different. The iPhone's success revealed that consumers wanted more than just email on their mobile devices. They wanted web browsing, multimedia, games, and applications. The App Store, launched in 2008, created an entirely new ecosystem of mobile software. RIM recognized the threat and rushed to develop its own touchscreen device. The BlackBerry Storm, launched in 2008, was intended to be RIM's iPhone killer. It featured a clickable touchscreen that provided tactile feedback when pressed. Unfortunately, the Storm was plagued with problems. The touchscreen was unresponsive, the software was buggy, and the device was significantly slower than the iPhone. Technology reviewers were harsh in their criticism, and consumers returned the device in large numbers. The competitive landscape became even more challenging when Google announced Android in 2008. Unlike Apple's closed system, Android was open source and available to any manufacturer. Companies like HTC, Samsung, and Motorola began producing Android phones that combined iPhone-like features with diverse hardware options. Despite these challenges, BlackBerry's user base continued growing, reaching 50 million subscribers by 2010. However, market share was declining as the overall smartphone market expanded rapidly. iPhone and Android devices were attracting new smartphone users who had never owned a BlackBerry. By 2011, the smartphone market was evolving at breakneck speed. Apple released new iPhone models annually with significant improvements. Android manufacturers were producing dozens of devices with different features, prices, and form factors. The pace of innovation was accelerating and RIM was struggling to keep up. RIM attempted to diversify by entering the tablet market with the BlackBerry Playbook in 2011. The device ran on QNX, a new operating system that RIM had acquired, and was intended to showcase the company's future software platform. The Playbook was a commercial disaster. It launched without native email or calendar applications, core features that BlackBerry users expected. The device sold poorly, and RIM was forced to write down hundreds of millions of dollars in unsold inventory. In January 2012, Mike Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie stepped down as co-CEOs, replaced by Thorsten Heinz, a former Siemens executive. Heinz was tasked with revitalizing the company and developing a new generation of BlackBerry devices based on the QNX operating system. RIM bet everything on BlackBerry 10, a completely redesigned operating system that would finally give the company a modern, touch-first interface. The software was intended to combine BlackBerry's traditional strengths in messaging and security with contemporary features like gesture-based navigation and a competitive app ecosystem. However, BlackBerry 10's development was plagued by delays. The software was originally scheduled to launch in 2011, then 2012, and finally debuted in January 2013. Each delay gave competitors more time to strengthen their market positions and made BlackBerry's eventual return seem less relevant. During this period, BlackBerry's market position collapsed. Global smartphone market share fell from 20% in 2009 to less than 3% by 2013. The company reported massive financial losses and was forced to lay off thousands of employees. Even more damaging was the erosion of BlackBerry's enterprise customer base. Companies that had standardized on BlackBerry for years began allowing employees to use iPhones and Android devices. The bring-your-own-device trend meant that BlackBerry's traditional enterprise advantage was becoming less important. BlackBerry 10 finally launched on January 30, 2013 with considerable fanfare. The company unveiled the BlackBerry Z10, a touchscreen device, and the Q10, which retained the traditional QWERTY keyboard that BlackBerry users loved. Early reviews of BlackBerry 10 were generally positive. Critics praised the software's intuitive interface and innovative features like the hub, which consolidated all communications in one place. However, reviewers noted that the app ecosystem remained limited compared to iOS and Android. Despite the positive reviews, BlackBerry 10 devices failed to generate significant sales. Consumers had moved on to other platforms, and carriers were reluctant to heavily promote devices that they didn't expect to sell well. The launch failed to reverse BlackBerry's decline. Recognizing that the hardware business was no longer viable, BlackBerry began shifting its focus to software and services. The company emphasized its strengths in security and enterprise software, positioning itself as a provider of secure communications solutions rather than a device manufacturer. In November 2013, John Chen was appointed as BlackBerry's new CEO. Chen, who had previously led the turnaround of software company Sybase, implemented a strategy focused on enterprise software, patent licensing, and partnership deals with other technology companies. One of Chen's first major decisions was to release BlackBerry Messenger for iOS and Android. This move, which previous leadership had resisted, acknowledged that BlackBerry's future lay in software services rather than exclusive hardware features. BlackBerry's rise and fall has become one of the most studied cases in business schools worldwide. The company's story illustrates several critical lessons about innovation, market disruption, and corporate strategy. First, BlackBerry's downfall demonstrates the danger of becoming too focused on existing customers while ignoring emerging market trends. RIM was so successful at serving enterprise customers that it failed to recognize how consumer preferences were changing the entire smartphone market. Second, the story highlights how quickly technological disruption can occur. BlackBerry went from market leader to irrelevant in less than 5 years, demonstrating that even the most successful companies must continuously innovate or risk obsolescence. Today's smartphone market is dominated by Apple and Samsung, with Google's Android powering the majority of devices worldwide. BlackBerry, once the undisputed leader in mobile communication, has found stability as a niche player focused on security and enterprise software. Yet BlackBerry's impact on the modern world cannot be understated. The company pioneered mobile email, created the first true smartphone ecosystem, and demonstrated that mobile devices could be powerful business tools. Every smartphone user today benefits from innovations that BlackBerry introduced. The BlackBerry story serves as a reminder that success in technology is never permanent. Today's market leaders, Apple, Google, Samsung, face their own disruptive threats from artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and technologies we haven't yet imagined. The BlackBerry story is a classic tale of innovation, success, and the challenges of adapting to changing markets. Here at Lucida, we explore these stories because they help us understand the forces shaping our technological world. Our documentaries examine not just what happened, but why it happened, and what we can learn from it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into BlackBerry's rise and fall, please subscribe to Lucida for more technology documentaries and business history narratives. What story would you like us to explore next? Let us know in the comments.